A few weeks ago, we told you Social Security's trust fund runs dry in 2032. An automatic 22% cut to everyone's check, unless Congress acts. Last week, one of the most respected economic research teams in the country published a new analysis. And the headline was almost the opposite of what you'd expect. The trust fund might last longer than we thought. Here is the part that should make you pause before celebrating. The researchers who delivered that slightly better news are the exact same people warning, in the exact same report, that the country still needs what they called, quote, pretty sizable reform. So which is it? Better news or the same warning with a friendlier headline? Today, we're going to walk through exactly what changed, why two respected institutions can look at the same program and land on slightly different dates, and what any of this actually means for how you should be planning right now. Here's why stories like this are genuinely hard to make sense of as a regular person. You see one headline saying the program is running out of money in 6 years. Then you see another headline from an equally credible source saying actually it might last a few months longer than that. Neither outlet is lying to you. They're just reporting on two different models, built by two different teams using slightly different assumptions. This particular update came from the Penn Wharton budget model, a respected nonpartisan research group based at the University of Pennsylvania. Their new projection has the Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust Fund, the part of Social Security that pays retirement benefits, running out in February 2033. The official Social Security trustees, in their report from earlier this month, projected the same fund running dry in the fourth quarter of 2032, a gap of roughly 2 to 4 months, on a program managing trillions of dollars and affecting tens of millions of people. Here's the detail that genuinely matters, and it's not really about the few months difference at all. For years, the Wharton model has consistently projected earlier depletion dates than the official Social Security trustees. Their model tended to run more pessimistic than the government's own numbers. This year, for the first time in a long while, that pattern reversed. The independent model is now slightly more optimistic than the official one. Remember the question from the beginning of this video? Is this actually better news or the same warning with friendlier packaging? Here's the honest answer. It's genuinely both, depending on which number you focus on. The short-term depletion date moved slightly later. That part is real, and it is mildly encouraging. But the long-term picture, looking out 75 years, actually got worse in this same Wharton report. The program's 75-year shortfall came in at 4.65% of taxable payroll, compared to 4.42% in the official trustees report. That's a larger gap than the official numbers show, not a smaller one. So the trust fund itself might run dry a few months later than feared. But the overall size of the problem, measured over the full multi-decade horizon, is actually slightly bigger by this same model's own math. Here's something important that often gets lost in headlines about depletion dates. Running out of trust fund reserves does not mean Social Security stops paying anything. Payroll taxes keep flowing in every single paycheck every single year, regardless of what happens to the reserve fund. Social Security would shift to paying out only what it collects in real time. Under the official trustees' projection, once the combined retirement and disability funds are depleted in 2034, the program could still pay 83% of scheduled benefits, falling gradually to 65% by the year 2100. Under the Wharton model's slightly more optimistic combined fund projection, depletion happens around February 2035, and 86% of benefits remain payable initially, falling to 60% by 2100. Notice something in both of those numbers. Even the supposedly better projection still ends up at a lower long-term percentage, 60%, than the official one's 65% by the end of the century. A few extra months of solvency now in exchange for a deeper cut decades from now. That is the actual trade-off buried inside this better news headline. One factor researchers specifically pointed to in worsening the longer-term picture: the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the same legislation behind the Trump accounts and student loan changes covered elsewhere on this channel, reduced how much revenue comes in from taxing Social Security benefits. A quarter of this year's increase in the program's long-term shortfall is directly attributed to that single piece of legislation. Lower taxes on benefits sounds like good news for current retirees. It also directly reduces the money flowing into the system that pays those same benefits. Here's the genuinely useful way to think about this, regardless of whether the trust fund runs out in late 2032 or early 2033. Move 1. Do not treat a few months' difference in projections as a reason to relax your own planning. Both models, from two genuinely credible and independent sources, agree on the core fact. Without congressional action, benefits get cut sometime in the early 2030s. The exact month does not change what you should be doing with your own retirement savings today. Move 2. Pay closer attention to the 75-year numbers than the single depletion date headline. The depletion date tells you when reserves run out. The 75-year shortfall, now at 4.42 to 4.65% of taxable payroll, depending on which model you use, tells you the actual size of the structural problem Congress eventually has to solve, whether that's through higher payroll taxes, benefit changes, or some combination. Move 3. Watch for actual legislative action, not competing research models, as the signal that meaningfully changes your planning. Wharton's own faculty director called for, quote, pretty sizable changes, despite delivering the more optimistic of the two projections. When the people producing the better-sounding headline are still using language like that, the underlying message has not actually changed as much as the headline suggests. Move 4. And this is the one within your control, regardless of what either model ultimately turns out to be right about. Build your own retirement plan as if Social Security pays out at the reduced percentage, not the full scheduled amount. If you're under 50, modeling your future income at 75 to 80% of today's projected benefit and building your personal savings to cover the rest means you come out ahead no matter which research team's depletion date turns out to be more accurate. Two respected institutions looked at the same program this month and arrived at slightly different conclusions. That's not really a story about who got it wrong. It's a reminder that long-range financial forecasting always carries real uncertainty. And the only plan that works, regardless of whose model is right, is the one that doesn't depend on getting the exact date correct. Here's what actually changed. The Penn Wharton budget model now projects Social Security's retirement trust fund lasting until February 2033, a few months later than the official trustee's fourth quarter 2032 estimate. But the same report shows the program's 75-year shortfall growing larger, not smaller, and its own faculty director is still calling for a sizable reform. Your takeaway: don't plan around the exact depletion month. Plan around the structural shortfall both models agree exists. Watch for real legislative action, not dueling research headlines. And build your own retirement number, assuming reduced, not full, Social Security benefits. The news got slightly better this month. The plan you need barely changed at all. If this helped you cut through confusing, contradictory headlines, hit that subscribe button. Every week on First Million Club, we break down exactly these kinds of real money stories with real numbers, so you know what actually changed and what's just noise.